Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with Christina to chat about localizations, a subject I'm super passionate about. I started focusing on localizations a couple years ago when I joined Dispatch to help companies create beautiful emails. I got interested in the topic because it's tricky to do well, and there's so many opportunities to be creative when implementing a strategy that will scale. So it's really great to be here with Christina because Crowdin offers an innovative, scalable, and easy to use solution that's perfect for companies that have to move fast, such as tech companies, and want to scale.
My name is Christina. I'm from the Crowdin team. I have been in localization for the past 6 years when I joined Crowdin. So I'm a marketing manager. I have talked to multiple customers localizing their content. I have done multiple customer surveys and interviews. And at some point, I was managing a community localization project myself. So I was working with community translators and translation agencies. So now I know ins and outs of various localization projects, and I'd love to share some insights on that with you. And I'm very excited to talk about email localization and running multilingual campaigns today, and how to do that without copy-pasting your content.
Cool. Let's start right away into localizations. So building a localization strategy. So if you're new to localizations and you don't know where to start, this next part is for you. So why should you localize, first of all? So there are currently 5.18 billion internet users worldwide, and only a quarter of them are native English speakers. 40% of consumers have said they wouldn't buy from a company if the marketing materials are not in their native language. I mean, that makes sense. If you're looking at an ad and you don't know what they're selling, you're not going to buy. So what does localization do for you? Well, it'll grow your addressable market. So it'll give you an extra millions of potential users without actually having to develop a new product.
Yeah, and also when you're localizing an email, you can get a better interaction with the customer. So an average email, it has from 50 to 300 words. It's not a lot to translate, but it can give you a great return on investment, because when your email is localized, you can get higher open rates. For example, if a user is a French-speaking person and their inbox is all English emails, your French email will stand out and they will open it to see what is the message you want to share. And if it's also in French, they will be more likely to connect with you and the message you are trying to convey. So you might also get higher conversion rates. And as a result, lower unsubscribe rates, because they will be able to connect with the company and the message you are sharing with them. So this way you will be able to build better relationship with your customer. So let me share a few words about the Crowdin as a company. So as a company, we started around 15 years ago. And this is the slide where I want to showcase some of our customers. We have more than 2 million registered users, and they are all using Crowdin to localize different kinds of content. They are localizing their emails, websites, games, emails. So basically, we are trying to help them make the whole company multilingual. And on the next slide, you can see some of the quotes our customers shared with us. So you can see from this that you can localize your content into 5 languages or 25 languages, and it still would be simple, because if you have a localization software, you can scale your project. And also one of our customers, they mentioned that they localize 100% of their content, because if you skip some parts of content, it piles up and then you have more to translate. So it's also easy for them to launch the localized content, because as they mentioned that 5 minutes after the translations are approved, they can be added to the website right away. And also the benefit of cloud-based software is that you do not have to install it. You do not need some tech person who will help you set it up. You can just log in, have your account, and start localizing your content. So it's pretty simple and quick. And let me explain you where we stand right now. So at first, we started as a software for developers by developers, but pretty quickly that need expanded. So the companies that were translating just an app or just a game, or just a website. They needed to localize more content. So one of our first integrations we had, it was GitHub and GitLab integrations, so people could connect with their repo and translate their software. But then they realized that they need to translate more. For example, if you're using an app, let's stay with French. If you're using an app in French and you sign up for their newsletter, you expect to receive emails in French as well. If you go to their knowledge base, you expect to see articles in French as well. So that is why we decided to help our customers translate all of those kinds of content as simple as they are translating their product, GitHub and GitLab integrations. That's why we started adding more apps and integrations. So now Crowdin has more than 500 of them. So our customers can connect with their CMS tools to localize their websites, with marketing tools, specifically Dispatch, they can localize their emails, with e-commerce software, with development software, that's something we started with. Also design tools, for example, Figma, you can localize your ad banners, you can preview your UI before development in different languages. If you're using Google Drive or Dropbox, you can still connect it with Crowdin, so you don't have to download the file manually, upload it to the system. Same goes for customer service. You can localize your knowledge base articles, support chats, and there are many other tools that can help you automate this whole process. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, thanks. Christina's touched on like the importance of localizing all the aspects of your product. So not just your emails or not just your product. You want to be able to localize your website, all your emailed communication. So that's your transactional emails, your marketing emails, your product, your ads, your app, all of that. So your customers expect that consistent brand experience. It makes them feel safe and trustful, and they're more likely to buy. So when you're developing an email specifically, or honestly, anything, your website, you'll have to evaluate your designs to accommodate the different lengths of words following the translation. So for example, a login button will go from 6 characters to 12 when translated to French. So from login to se connecter, it takes much more space. So you'll want to avoid the text wrapping or the truncating that could happen if you don't plan ahead for that. So focusing on a single language first to localize allows you to set all this up and make it repeatable. And then that way you can scale later on. So localization includes not just translating word for word, it includes taking into account the cultural inclinations of your audience. So for instance, if you're targeting a market in Japan, it's important to use the appropriate Japanese language for the translations and ensure that the messaging aligns with the cultural values and norms of the Japanese audience. So you might want to incorporate elements of Japanese aesthetics or design into your visuals with that'll resonate better with the local population. So you're not just changing the words in your content, you're also looking at changing the email, the images in your emails and all of that. So keep in mind, you don't need to become a localization expert to be able to start localizing your content. You just need the right tools, and that's where Dispatch and Crowdin comes in. So you want to prevent errors and you want to simplify your process. So having these integrations minimizes the risk of making those mistakes. So you want to ensure that you have full visibility into your process from day one. That'll ensure that your process continues to work even as you expand to dozens or hundreds of different locales. So at Dispatch, we've seen this be crucial for mid-market brands as they scaled globally. So think to the future. When you're starting out, consider the process from the strategy to translation to implementation and testing. Choose a tool that fits your team and budget now, but it's proven to scale. So don't pay for the Cadillac if you just are starting up and you're happy with a good sedan. Is that a good? I think it's a good analogy. Anyways, Crowdin is amazing because it provides you the value of the Cadillac and you can do everything with them. So there's also a few reasons why you want to use POT and PEO files. For those that don't know what those are the files that will contain all the strings in your emails or in your content before and after translation. So it's that file that gets translated. So using those files instead of Excel sheets or any other tracking method that you use will ensure that you can separate the copy from the dynamic content, and then you can translate both. Translators can see what's variable and what's static. So you don't want to send out hello first name to be translated and then get back bonjour prénom, because that'll change your merge tag, and then all your French users will get some weird email. They'll get bonjour prénom and they won't get their name in there. So it'll be embarrassing. It's also going to ensure that you can keep your time to market really quick when you go global, and it'll eliminate errors. So I've seen some spreadsheet disasters with people doing manual edits, and it's very hard to keep track of. So definitely going with PO and POT files is the way to go. And also, you're going to save money with your localizations, and we all want to save money. So remember to consider as well, when you are starting to localize, your customers will expect your product and your customer support to also be in that language of the email that you sent to them. So scale your support team and your product accordingly. And like Christina mentioned, don't save it all for the end, do it as you go, and then you avoid the big load at the end. And don't forget your help docs. I want to quickly touch on strategies for more experienced teams. So if you've already started localizing, so these teams, they want to optimize their process. They want to scale quickly. They want to speed up the process, cut costs, and eliminate errors. So it's all about becoming more efficient. So this comes down to automating as much as possible. So getting those right tools. So in the creation of emails, you want to reuse components as much as possible, and you don't want to create from scratch. That's what takes forever. So you want to speed up. Using a visual builder like Dispatch will guarantee the responsiveness. So you don't have to spend a lot of time with the troubleshooting. It's already guaranteed responsive as soon as you develop an email in Dispatch. You want to integrate with your translation provider. So your tool has to have that integration with your translation provider, such as Crowdin. And then translate the reusable parts of your emails to avoid retranslating. So for example, your legal footer, that never changes. You're going to attach it to all your emails. You don't want to be retranslating that every time. Once legal has given you the sign off, you leave it as it is, and you can just reuse it and reuse it translated. So you're not retranslating. So a quick tip with Dispatch, you can speed up your process even more with locale groups. So that's where you can save a bundle on translation costs by putting all your similar locales into a single one. So let's say Spanish, like all the Spanish countries that have a similar dialect, like Colombia, Guatemala, you can put them all into a locale group, translate it as one, and save money so you're not translating the 7 or 8 or 9 different Spanish groups. All right, let's talk a little bit about best practices. I'll talk a little bit on the email side, and then Christina can talk a little bit on the localization side, translation side. So on the email side, before you even start, just analyze the whole situation and plan ahead, kind of see where you're going. So you want to invest in a style guide. You want to have your guide consistent, your brand consistent, just so your users are all very familiar and everything that you send out is consistent and good. You want to keep your target culture in mind. Like I mentioned earlier, the images, slogans, everything, you want to appeal to your local users. And then you want to provide room for the text expansion. So your buttons, if you have a table, I've seen emails with tables in them, make sure that your table has enough width to accommodate the translated content, your titles, all of that. And then externalize all translatable content. That speeds things up and make sure you don't have any errors. Finally, understand your tools and use them to their full extent. I can't say that enough. So many people buy so many tools and they don't really know how to use them all the way. They don't know all the features. So make sure you understand all the features. Use their support team to the max. Like make sure that you get your money's worth out of your experience with the tool that you choose. I was on LinkedIn the other day and I read a really great article by Joseph Adio. I'll put his LinkedIn profile. He's great to follow, but he mentioned how Nike transcreated. So he calls localization transcreating, the Just Do It campaign in different locales. So for example, in China, they transcreated Just Do It as use sports to change your life. So that appealed to the Chinese desire for harmony and balance. So they didn't just go word for word. In France, Nike translated Just Do It as fais-le, which is a literal translation of the original slogan, but they adapt it to the different context for the audience. So fais-le pour toi, do it for yourself, or fais-le pour elle, do it for them, or fais-le pour Paris, which is do it for Paris. These variations really appeal to the French values of individualism, feminism, and patriotism. So it's just like really using good translations to like target the values of your audience.
Yeah, building up on that, it's not enough to just do a word-for-word translation. Especially when it comes to emails, it's more creative content, and it should feel like it was created for that specific audience. In the perfect scenario, it would be best if you can have a local expert who can create the email from scratch. But it also works if you can translate the message and have a native speaker to be the translator or the proofreader of that email, so they can make sure that it sounds like it was created in that specific language. Because if it's a word-for-word translation, you can feel that it doesn't feel like natural. You feel that something is off with that email. So especially if with different types of emails, as you mentioned, there are like onboarding emails, promotional emails, transactional emails. There are all sorts of emails. So for example, if it's a promotional email, you have to keep in mind that if it's a holiday discount, that every country has their own holidays. So you will not be able to run a 1st of July discount across 20 countries and have the same reaction, because you have to keep in mind that US celebrates the 1st of July, but countries in Europe do not celebrate this holiday. So you have to find some local holiday that you can create a discount for that holiday that is celebrated in that locales. So yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to create your email or the whole campaign from scratch. You can still reuse some parts of that campaign. You can still have the same like discount percentage and things like that, but you have to choose a local holiday and adapt it to the local market. And you have to change the visuals in that same email. Yeah, so that brings us to question what kind of emails can be localized. So at first, I would recommend you starting with onboarding emails, because you already have those segmented for user personas, and you will just have to adapt the messaging. When it comes to some other like more creative emails, like I mentioned, some promotional or newsletters, you have to adapt them more and keep in mind the market you're targeting, the personas. So it's always a good idea if a native speaker can review that email and tell you that that's good, that works. Yeah, so let's get to the next slide. I would like to start.
Yeah, let's chat about taking the guesswork out of localizing. So we've already discussed, you want to choose the tools that take the guesswork out of localizing quickly and accurately. So Dispatch provides instant feedback on your email with guardrails to ensure that you have a winning subject line, that your email won't get clipped in Gmail for being too long, and more. And Crowdin provides in-depth visibility into your translations each step of the way. Don't forget your alt text, right? You want to make sure your emails have all that alt text filled in and localized. Check your dark mode as well. Check mobile versus desktop with litmus previews, or in Dispatch, you can even test while you develop. So you don't even need to wait for the litmus previews, although we have that built in. Most testing focuses on rendering problem, mobile responsiveness issues, the links that need to be checked. You want to make sure that your links are also localized. Merge fields need to be tested, and more. So this takes a minute or two with guardrails, and it saves you from sending a broken email. So a perfect email every time is absolutely possible.
It's also important to provide as much context as you can to your translators. So when they are translating, they are not guessing like who's the target audience of this email, like where this sentence is used, because you do not want to send them just a random list of sentences like not connected at all, and they will not be able to like see the whole email, like what is the subject line, what is the CTA in this email. You want to show them the whole email so they have the whole picture and they can translate it properly. So in Crowdin, we try to help you provide the context for your translators. So for that, we have a comment section. So if a translator has a question, or wants to discuss some sentence or some CTA, like where it is supposed to lead, they can just leave a comment and you can just help them and understand. There's also a context section, so you can just type in some context if you know that they might have questions about that. You can also provide screenshots if needed. And also for emails, you can have a preview so the translator sees the whole email and have a better idea of how to translate this email. You can discuss with them like how it works and how they should translate it. So basically we try to provide as much context as we can. And let me show you how the integration between crowding and dispatch works. I have a short recording, and let's press play and I will explain how it works. So at first we have a crowding enterprise account. We have created a demo project for this account. So at first we will have to go to the marketplace and find the dispatch app so we can install it for this organization. So you can see we found the dispatch app. We just install it. It can be enabled for some specific project, for all projects, for some specific project member, or for all of them. Now we open a project we want to use for our email localization. We open the app, and to connect the tools, we'll need the dispatch API key. It's really simple to get that API key. I'm a marketing manager, I'm not a developer. It took me like 15 seconds to get that API key. So we go to administration section and we go to API keys. We just generate a new one. We name it. We can name it a test key or whatever you like, so you know where it's connected. So here's the API key. We just copy it to connect. Don't bother remembering the key. It's disabled now. It doesn't work. So the tools are connected now. You can see the dispatch on the right side. Here we can see the emails I created in dispatch. And on the left side, you will see the files connected to crowding. There are no files yet, but once we choose some of the files on the right side, we can click sync to crowding and they will be sent to crowding. So translators will be able to see them and start translating. We will not dwell into that. In my demo project, I connected machine translation. The files are translated right away. There is no need to do any additional work. So as you can see, there's 100%. That means the files are translated. Once I select the files, I can sync them back to dispatch, and then they are automatically sent to dispatch, so no copy pasting. So you can see this email is now in French. No copy pasting, no additional manual work, just a few seconds. Just a big disclaimer, I do not recommend using machine translation to translate all of your emails. This is just a demo project, so we can have translations added quickly. If you do decide to use machine translation, please at least do human review, do post-editing, because emails are creative content, and it's best to at least have a human review those emails. And so let's go to the next slide. Still the video. As I mentioned, it's probably we should exit the video mode, I think.
Sorry there.
In this slide, you can see the translation editor in crowding. There are several views. You can adjust them to your liking. This is the one I like to use. So on the left side, you can see the email. The color highlights show which texts are translated and which should be translated yet. On the right side, you can see the text itself. As you can see, the tags are highlighted in yellow. This is done so the translators knows not to translate those texts. They can just click on them and copy them and paste the translation in between those texts. Even if translator decides to change those tags, to break them, if translator says like, I do not understand the symbols, let me just remove them. They will not break your email because they won't be able to save this translation with broken text. We have QA checks that will tell your translators the moment they click save, like, hey, you had some text in the source string, they are missing in the translation, please put them back, or make sure you are doing the right thing. So we remove this space for errors, so translators will know not to do that. Also, as Cindy mentioned, most of emails use placeholders like username, last name, company name. So those are placeholders that will also be highlighted in the Crowdin editor. So translators will know not to translate them. They will be like highlighted in yellow or red. And once you hover over them, it will say it's a placeholder, do not translate it. Yeah, so that's how it works in Crowdin. And once the translator does this translation in the editor, you will be able to sync files back to Dispatch. And to the next slide. Yeah, and to summarize how the integration works. So you create your email in Dispatch, you just send it to Crowdin, where it can be translated by your in-house team, by a professional translation agency. Or machine translation. Please do not use machine translation. And then you can review those texts. And also, once the text is translated, you can send your localized email back to Dispatch. For example, one of our customers, once they wanted to translate around 50 emails, they send those emails to Crowdin. They run pre-translation via not machine translation, but translation memory. How translation memory works. If you have an email and you already translated it, the translation memory saves it as two segments, like the source text, and this is how it was translated. So the next time you upload the email that has similar or the same sentences, it will say, hey, you already translated this. Do you want to reuse your translation? So in case you have that, you can just run pre-translation via translation memory, and you do not have to translate those emails again. So in the case I'm mentioning, they had around 50 emails, they uploaded them to Crowdin, and they were able to pre-translate from 10 to 50% of those emails automatically, no human interaction needed. And then they just invited some of their in-house translators and translation agency, and they all just started translating simultaneously in the online editor, and they translated all those emails, and it took like a day to have all those 50 emails translated into 10 languages. And then they were able to send all those translated emails to their marketing team. So that's probably the main reason I do not recommend using spreadsheets, because with spreadsheets, you won't be able to translate 50 emails into 10 languages in a day. So I'm all pro automation, because you shouldn't spend your time copy pasting translations. You should do something better. So we want to automate these processes so we can focus on more important work. So that's why this integration can allow you to have an automated sync. So you can have it hourly, daily, weekly. So you can upload your files. You know that your team needs a day to translate them, and you just select to translate to sync those translations back to Dispatch once a day. And once a day, the system will check for new translation and would add them to the system. You can also do the manual sync. It's manual, but it's still a sync. So we just click a button, send these files to Crowdin, and you click another button, send translations back to Dispatch. So there's still no copy pasting. Yeah, so that's probably it about the integration.
Awesome. That puts us right on time.
Yeah.
Maybe we can hop to questions. I'm going to stop sharing, and we can see what we have for questions here. Take a look at the...
Yeah, so feel free to send your questions to the chat section or the Q&A section. We will give you a few seconds to type those questions. Oh, I see we have one question in the Q&A. Okay, can you provide insights on the role of automation and AI in streamlining multilingual email marketing processes? Yeah, so probably we already covered most of the automation part, like it reduces the manual work and you do not have to copy paste those texts back and forth. Regarding AI, that's actually a really good question, because we recently integrated with AI assistant, so you can run machine translation using this AI. It's better for me because it knows the context. Because machine translation, they all know the language, but they do not know the context. But AI knows the context. So for example, if you use AI assistant in Crowdin, you can say, hey, I'm translating marketing emails. This is a promotional campaign for 1st of July. Please help me with translations. And it will consider that information when suggesting machine translations. So you will have a better result than just having word-for-word translation. It's still a beta version of this app, so, but I still highly recommend you trying it out and seeing how it works for you.
Also, just to add on that, automating your QA is really good. So like with the guardrails and dispatch, just being able to just have like it automatically checking to make sure that your links are localized, that all your content is localized. That's a good way too to save a lot of time and to take advantage of that automation process.
Yeah, I see we have one more question. How can organization ensure the accuracy of translated email templates during the localization process? Cindy, do you want to take this one?
I think that's a great question. Christina, you kind of touched on it when you said it's good to have someone like a native speaker kind of take a glance at it. I know if I localize something in Spanish, I'll want my Colombian husband to take a look. But definitely, yeah, I would recommend having a native speaker take a look just to make sure, and then reusing stuff that you've already localized. So Christina, you mentioned, what was the term where it checks to see that it's already been localized and then it'll reuse it? So, hey, you've already
localized. Pre-translation. Yeah, we have pre-translation.
Yeah. So taking full advantage of that, I think that's fantastic, because that way you know that it already works and you don't have to worry about it. Same with being able to localize your content at email section parts. So like already, if you have your footer, you know that that's accurate. You've already had legal take a look at it, and then you reuse it. And that way you can ensure the accuracy when you don't change anything on it.
Okay. Yeah, I see a few more questions. With dispatch and crowding, you can localize alt text, correct? Can crowding alone localize alt text when localizing a Word file? Thank you. We typically do not recommend localizing Word files. Crowding is more created for a frequently updated and changed content. But still, if you have a Word file, you can just upload it to crowding, and any content there is to translate. We will see that. But yeah, to have some like more details on that, I would suggest talking to our support team so they can provide some more details for you. But yeah, definitely you can do that.
Perfect. I think we're right on time, so we're gonna wrap it up. But anyone, feel free to reach out to us. We will put in you can reach out to me at Dispatch. Christina's at Crowdin, but we'll put in our LinkedIn profiles here in the chat shortly, so you can reach out to us on LinkedIn as well. And then any questions that we see that haven't been answered, check out for a blog post and we'll follow up on those. So we'll just give us 2 seconds to put those LinkedIn profiles in here, and then we'll be set to go.
Yeah, I will just send my LinkedIn name. You can just find me on LinkedIn by my name and last name. And if you want to email me, it's just christina@crowdin.com, and I would be happy to chat. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add my email address here. There you go. So thanks everyone for attending. It was a pleasure chatting with everyone this morning. Thanks, Christina, so much for setting this up. It was a pleasure to chat with you as well.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much. And for everyone who participated, no worries, we will have a recording so you can rewatch the webinar once more. Hey, thank you.
All right, have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.